I hope that everyone's doing well in their respective lives and their stages of lives. And I'm going to give you a small Dvar Torah, an idea for this time of year, but also a real message to alumni specifically. So the story is told of Rav Irving Bunim and Rav Cutler, that they were together in a lecture at a conference. And during the conference, a lot was being said about how when money supports Torah, the money people get the same amount of schar in Olam Haba as the people who learn Torah. That was quite a lesson for the sustainers of the yeshiva to hear. And Rav Irving Bunim came over to Rav Cutler, who was the head of the yeshiva he supported, and said, "Did you hear that? According to what was said today, I'm going to be getting the same piece of Olam Haba as you, Rav Cutler, because I am the financial support behind the institution." And Rav Cutler looked at him, Rav Irving Bunim, looked at this benefactor and said, "You are 100% correct that you will have the same Olam Haba as me. That's what we established today in our day in the convention. But I want you to know that you may have Olam Haba, but I have Olam Haba even in Olam Haza." What does that mean? He was trying to say, Rav Cutler, that yes, you are financing my next world, and therefore together we will be zocha to the same next Olam Haba. But I'm living a life of fulfillment and meaning at every moment of my day by learning Torah and being involved with the yeshiva. And therefore, even though you're going to have the same Olam Haba as me, I'm having Olam Haba in this world as well, while the business world isn't as fulfilling as that world. At first glance, you hear a story like that, it's pretty powerful. But when you try to sort of make it realistic for yourself, you question that. Is it really Olam Haba in this world to be learning all the time and having fulfillment? Is that really a valid thing for us on an everyday level? I don't know. I think it's something that we have to question. I think it's something we have to look into. But I think it's the challenge that we all face, especially in the stage of life of post the year in Israel, where everything moves from Israel and meaningful moments and chavaya and keeping Torah to the extreme to surviving in the big world, in the real world. And it's not simple, and I think it needs to be addressed. So Reb Pincus has something to say on this matter in Tefillah, very practical. He says in the first of the Bakasha, Atacho Nein La'adam Das, we ask God for das, which means knowledge. But what's the difference, he says, between Chachma, Bina, and Das? So he says that Das, or Da'a, Dalet Ayin Taf, is what we're requesting at the beginning of our Shemona Esrei. And it's this, that we know usually in situations what's right. I know what to do in a business situation. I know what to do in a family situation or a personal situation with a boy. I know what to do in most situations. But the question is, do I synthesize my personality with that which I know to be right? And that's what Atachonin La'adam Das, what Bakasha we're making during that tefillah, is we're asking Hashem not only for us to have guidance on what's right in life, but to be able to synthesize our personalities with that which we know to be right. Again, in most situations, we know what's right. That doesn't mean we do what's right. And Atachonin becomes a daily bakasha to do what's right in these situations because, again, it's hard to synthesize our personalities to what we know to be right to do what is right. Now, this does link in a little bit already to our first point. The reason why Rav Cutler said to Irving Bunim that he has Olam Haba and Olam Haza is because Rav Cutler was able to do this. He was able to do what's right and not just know what's right. And living a life like that is full of fulfillment and is full of meaning at every step of the way. But in many ways, we lose the soul of our avodas Hashem. We have the externals. Most of us will say, for sure, I keep kosher. I keep Shabbos every week. I even daven sometimes, or all the time. But sometimes these things are shells of actions. They don't have such soul for us yet. And that's what we have to work on, because for it to be fulfilling and for it to last the test of time and to be powerful and to be a main priority of our lives, it needs to have the internal as much as the external. To be official on paper as somebody who's Orthodox is not enough. We need to have a neshama, a soul in our religious practice. And somebody who's devoted a lot of time into this, and I think I've been thinking a lot about it since I read it, was Rav Weinberger of the Eish Kodesh in the Five Towns. He wrote an online article about this topic, that we need to bring the soul back to religion. There's a reason why we all run to a Shlomo Carlebach Friday night davening. If I daven at home, I just don't feel it the way I do in a Shlomo Carlebach setup. There's a power to song, there's a power to dance, there's a power to the experience. And if I just remain a shell of externals, I just don't feel the fulfillment in this world that Yiddishkeit is supposed to bring me, and I just don't get Rav Cutler's comment of what does it mean to have Olam Haba in Olam Hazeh. You know, I think we underestimate ourselves. The Nesiva Shalom in Parshas Emor, which is this week's Parsha, I think, for Chutz La'aretz, describes that every theme of the Parshiot around this time of year of Sfirat HaOmer are about Kedusha. Okay, Banim atem la'Hashem Elokechem, okay, your Mamlecha Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh, Kadoshim Tiyu. Over and over again, we see Kedusha, Kedusha, Kedusha. And the Nesiva Shalom gives amazing mashal to make the point. He says, picture the following. It's right out of a Disney movie, I think. In fact, I think there was one, the Princess Diaries, like this. Okay, so this is classic Princess Diaries, comes down, Lahavdil, and the Nesiva Shalom as well. Picture the following. A prince falls in love with a villager wife, a girl. And they're going out, and he says, I want to marry you. And she's like, you want to marry me? I am a Bas Kfar. I'm a little villager woman. I milk cows all day, and I I churn butter. What are you going to do with me? Like, you want to marry me? And he's like, yes, you're full of values, and I really love you. I want to marry you. So she's like, okay. So he says, but listen, you need to turn into a princess. And it doesn't happen overnight. You need to learn to walk like a princess, talk like a princess, only do the actions of a princess. So he spends months and months working with her because he wants her to be accepted in the palace. He wants his father to accept his new wife. Okay, he wants her to be accepted by his constituency, and he wants them all to believe she's a princess. And the only way to pull this off is if this Bas Kfar, this little villager woman who used to churn butter, turns into a princess. And with time and with effort, it can happen. Says the Nesiva Shalom the same about us. We leave Mitzrayim. We go through Sfirat HaOmer like a ladder. We're climbing up every day slowly. And because of that, we have to start understanding that we are no longer villagers. We are now becoming royalty. That's what we are in our own right. And God says it over and over again this time of year. Okay, Atem tiyuli mamlecha kohanim v'goy kadosh. You are all princes in my book. You are all holy. You are all special. But do we believe that about ourselves? Do we believe that we are royalty? Do we carry ourselves in the world like we're royalty? You know, the royal wedding was a year ago. And at the royal wedding, Kate Middleton was a villager. And she married the prince. And she pulled it off with class. And everyone who went to that wedding wore hats, wore regal clothing, and covered themselves with great distinction in what they wore. Because again, they understood this is royalty. Well, guess what? We're royalty. And royalty doesn't act with just externals, okay? It's not just about keeping kosher or when the sun sets, lighting candles and it's Shabbos. It's about the soul within all of this. It's believing it, understanding that you are now a princess and you have to carry yourself in a different way at all times a day. Seeing the value of who you are and having fulfillment in this world that, yes, this world is your next world. Seeing this world as valuable as the next world because your personal fulfillment and your avodas Hashem is so great that this world is just as meaningful to you as the next world, as Rav Cutler drew that motif at the beginning of our storyline. I'd like to end with another powerful story, and this story comes down from Rav Weinberger himself in that article, Online Journal. This story I've told to my children, I've told to anyone who will give me the time of day. It speaks to me, it speaks to everyone I tell. It's about exactly what we're trying to instill here, and that is the soul of religion and not keeping it as a shell and finding that fulfillment in our everyday. This story is told of a poetry contest. And it was in Germany after the war. And there were 2 children left for the poetry contest. And they got up to the front like you would imagine a spelling bee. And they had to recite specific poetry pieces by heart. And the winner of that last battle would win the award. So these 2 children get up. And the man says the last poem we want to hear by heart is the poem of Psalms, which we call Tehillim, right? The Lord is our shepherd, I shall not want. Hashem roi lo echsar, Mizmor LeDavid that we say on Shal Shidduch. But it was a secular thing, and it was told in English. And the first boy freaked. He forgot the words. And halfway through, he lost his pattern, and he bolted. And the second kid gets up, and from beginning to end, he recites with great passion this piece of Tehillim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Mizmor LeDavid, Hashem roi lo echsar. At the end, there was a huge applause for this boy. He won the big poetry competition. He got the prizes. He walked off with the trophy, and everyone thought it was finished. And out of the crowd came an older man. And he raised his hand in front of everyone, and he said, "May I have a moment of everyone's attention before they leave this arena?" Everyone said, of course. They saw he was 80 years old. Of course, they're going to give him their respect. And he came up to the stage, and he said, "I also want to say this piece of Psalms by heart." They're all like, okay, listen, I just want you to know you're not in this competition. We're happy to listen to you, but don't think you're going to get anything for this. And he's like, no, I'm not expecting anything in return. But before this group leaves this room, I want to recite these Psalms as well. And of course, with great respect, they all said, they acquiesced. And he got up to the front and he began, Hashem roi lo echsar, Mizmor LeDavid, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But he said it slowly, with great difficulty, clearly a survivor of the Holocaust, and you could hear a pin drop in the room. And as he finished, he looked up, and the entire room was crying. Everyone was crying. And that's how the day ended. And afterwards, the boy who won the poetry contest ran up to this elderly gentleman, and he said to him, "Listen to me. I won this award fair and square, and I know that, but I have just a quick question for you before you leave my life forever. How could it be that when I said that poem, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, everybody applauded and laughed and were excited for me. But when you said the same exact piece of Tehillim, Psalms, everyone in the audience cried." The elderly gentleman who had been through a lot in his life looked at this little boy and said, "There's one reason for that. You see, the shepherd for you is a stranger, but the shepherd for me is my closest friend who's seen me through my days." And that's what people could tell when I said it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The shepherd is no longer for me something, way beyond or foreign. It's not just externals to me. It's not just about getting up there and bolting out the right poem to get my award. The shepherd is my friend, and the piece of Psalms was passionately said by me with all of my heart and all of my soul, and that's what touched the people in the audience. Dear alumni of Tiferet, I wish you the same thing. I know it's easier here. I know it's easier here in Ramat Beit Shemesh in Israel. It's more conducive. Every second is about growth and tiyulim and guest speakers and opening a sefer and davening with intent. It's hard in the real world. It's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to fill the soul of that shell of religion that you keep alive in the States. But I know it can be done. And I know that all you have to do is link into yourselves and understand that you're royalty. That's what I try to tell myself every day, to stay in the same frame of mind that I'm suggesting to you. It's an avoda for me too. You're royalty. Atah chonen la'adam das. You know what's right in most situations, but the question is, will your personality synthesize with that you know to be true? It's a challenge for all of us, but how much more so when you're not in an environment of growth every second of the day. And I think we need to strive to become friends with the shepherd, to understand what Rav Cutler meant, that his Olam Haza is his Olam Haba, so that we live our life with Torah, Avodas Hashem, Yirah Shamayim, but with a great inner sense of what that means, to pick up the inside, the soul of our religion, which is so